Okay, this video is going to show you how to do the binding method. I've got a different version to show you how to do the birthing method. So for this, you're going to need your sewn front and your lining piece, the pleated lining piece. You will need your exterior back and your lining back. You will need the zipper, and the pattern tells you what length to cut your zipper to. You will need 2 rectangle rings and 2 pieces of webbing. These are 3 inches long and or 7.5 centimeters. And you will need, for the binding version, you need 4 of these piece ends, zipper ends. 2 of them exterior, 2 of them lining. Okay, we're going to start off with the zipper and our zipper ends. And just like our front zipper, we're going to sandwich it, the ends, both ends, between the zipper ends. This does work as well with a size 3 zipper. You'll just do the same thing that you did on the front. You'll, when you're sewing it, you'll position it 1/8 of an inch, 3 millimeters away from the raw edge. Okay, so I'm going to sew these ends. I'm still using a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. Then I will top stitch across. I gotta remember to use my Teflon foot. Okay, so I've got my sewn zipper, and now I'm going to pay attention to what side the zipper head is at, and I want it on the right. And you're going to, I'm going to make sure that the right side of the zipper is towards the top side of the zipper is towards the right side of the exterior, and I'm going to center it so that I have the same amount of zipper end on each side. Now I have my other lining, and I'm going to sandwich the zipper between the 2 of these and make sure that the lining matches up with the exterior. I'm going to switch to my zipper foot. And stitch with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And remember, if you were using the size 3 zipper, you would put your zipper, instead of flush with the raw edge, you'd put it 1/8 of an inch away. But your zipper ends would match up with the raw edge. Hope you can still see me sewing. I'm having to squish down this top layer because my sewing machine wants to be pushing it. And of course, I don't want that to happen. I'm just moving the zipper pull. And now I'm going to move the zipper pull the other way. Okay. Now I'm going to turn these pieces wrong sides together. And since I can't press this with the iron, I'm just finger pressing them flat. All right, I'm going to switch back to my Teflon foot to top stitch this. Hopefully it'll do an okay job. Oh, and you'll find that this area right here, you're sewing over the top of the pocket. That helps keep the pocket in place. So just make sure it's all flat there. Okay. Now I need my pattern piece for this piece. This is why we didn't cut this off, because now we need to unfold it and place it directly on top. And that's how we figure out where to trim this right here. If you use the size 3 zipper, it's not going to match up. It's going to be about 1/8 from the top. But I used a size 5 zipper, size 4.5 or 5 zippers will go to the top of the paper. So I'm now finished with this back zipper. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to baste around this entire back piece to make this into just one. We'll treat it as one piece of fabric after that instead of these two. And we're going to do the same thing with the front pieces, but I'm going to do the back first. And I'm going to make sure to keep I'm just going to baste this. So I've got a lengthened stitch and I'm going to keep it very close to the edge. I'm actually going to do this from the back because I think my machine will handle the vinyl a little better from the back. If not, I'll just switch it and do the other way. Yep, it's doing better from the back. And I'm going to set this aside. And now I'm going to baste around this piece. So I'm going to try to open up this seam and I am going to match up these corners. Same thing over here. Or you can do the seams different directions like that. Or if you have this one clipped, you can open up both seams. I just baste this all the way, or clip this all the way around. And if I find that as I get around I have a little extra lining or not enough lining, then I just go back and readjust everything until it matches up. This looks like it's laying nicely. Let's see, like this, I've got just a little bit extra lining, so I just adjust a little bit with all these curves. It can be easy for the fabric to stretch in some places. Okay, there. Now I am going to baste all the way around the edge of this, also close to the edge. And one thing I do is I typically take this and I tuck it away. I just find it easier to sew when that is not as much of a big lump right here. And now we're going to do the webbing. Okay. Take your short lengths, wrap them around. I typically find it easier to zigzag them together so they won't, oops, I can't zigzag with this foot. That's how I end it, with pieces of needle flying at my face. Okay, so I zigzag these ends together. All right, you can do this on either the front or the back. I prefer to do it on the front because I can see where this seam is. But it can be harder to work around this lump. So if you feel more comfortable, just do it on the back. I put the middle of this, I match it up with the edge of the purse, and I have it stick over about 1/2 inch. Now it is rounded here, so it's not going to be 1/2 inch all the way around, but I just look at these edges and make those edges 1/2 inch. And then over here, same thing. I don't have a handy dart to match it up with, but I just try to make sure that it's parallel with the flap, and I kind of center it with the flap. And now I'm going to sew back and forth across this a couple of times to keep it in place. And I know this part might be kind of hard because you're used to having your webbing extend farther in, but we actually are going to cut this off. I lost the end of that. It went behind my table. The reason we're going to cut it off is only because later on we're going to be really reinforcing this with some zigzag stitches. I've taken apart store-bought patterns just to say, do they really not have the webbing go in very far? And they don't. So I'm zigzagging these ends to help them not fray. Some webbings are worse than others that fraying when you cut it. This isn't too bad, but I still like to zigzag the ends. Okay, later on, I promise, after we bind it, we'll come back and we'll do a very tight zigzag stitch here to help keep it reinforced. Also, this isn't a backpack that you're going to be putting super heavy things in, not like a school backpack, so it should be fine. Okay. Now we're going to put these pieces right sides together. And before you do this, you need to be turning it through this later on. So if you forget, you can kind of stink trying to get it to open later on. So this is where I start I usually start at the corners. And just start clipping it together. Parts of this are very thick. That's why I say to be careful using a domestic machine with this pattern. Be careful what fabrics you're using. I'm really pushing the limits of my machine with this fabric, but I've made this with vinyl, a different vinyl before, and it was okay. I just have to be very patient and careful. I actually think I need to move this whole thing over just a little bit, so I am going to clip this all together. I'm going to just go like this and start clipping all the way around, and then I will come back to the video. Okay, I have this all clipped together, right sides together. I ended up starting from the bottom 2 corners because those are easier to match up, and then moving around to the top, and that worked well. So I am going to move to a basting stitch. I'm going to stitch about a 1/4 inch away from the edge. Down here at the bottom, it's very easy to stitch over these parts. It's only at the top where you start having to smush things around. So far my machine is handling it. Back to the webbing. Good machine, good job. Good job. Okay. Now you know what? You might need to do a zipper foot here at the top. I am going to change the position of my foot, so I am the position of my needle, so I can move my foot over and not run into the zipper teeth. But if you can't do that, you might just want to switch to a zipper foot. This will probably also make it a little easier to get around this edge with the webbing and the rectangle ring. It can be kind of bulky. Now I'm going to switch back to the center because it's hard to get it to sit as well. Okay, got all the layers together. Whew. It's pretty thick. Now there are different ways that you can do the binding. I tried a different method recently and I really liked it. Decided to use it in this pattern, and that's using waterproof canvas as the binding instead of bias tape. Bias tape is just a lot of layers to worry about. This is just one that you fold in half. In the pattern I tell you to use it 1 inch thick or 1/8 inch thick if it is a thick fabric. So I wasn't sure whether I would need the 1 inch or the 1/8 with this. I think I could get away with a 1 inch on the easy sections, But on these thick ones, I'm trying to decide whether I need a thicker, whether I need to turn it and have it a thicker way. And I think I'll be happier with the thicker way. So I'm going to go cut out. Let's see if I do it thin. I could just barely make it work, but I'm going to do the slightly wider version. So I'm going to go cut out a strip of waterproof canvas that's 1 1/8 inches wide. And for this size, I need about 44 inches. The pattern gives you different sizes for the different lengths for the different sizes. And I will come back. Okay, I've got my long length of waterproof canvas. You'll notice I didn't cut it on the bias because I've tried cutting it on the bias and it doesn't really give me much more stretch. So I just use it on the grain. Then I'm going to just start usually on one of these short sides. And one thing I often do is I fold my strip by hand and just kind of give it a little bit of a crease, and that helps me when I am placing it to see where the center is. But I have never melted waterproof canvas myself, but I've seen other people melt it, so I'm not doing this with my iron. You might wonder if the edges fray. I know I'm not the only one that does this, and I have not heard of people complaining. The only thing I notice is if I get too close to the edge when sewing, that it does look like it's fraying a little bit. But I've been using the version that I sewed for myself for a month or more now, and I bound it with waterproof canvas, and I haven't noticed any issues on the inside with it fraying. So I'm going to clip this all the way around before sewing. You are going to get some little wrinkles on the corners. It's not going to be perfectly flat, but it is going to be on the inside where it's not seen. So I'm not too worried about those wrinkles. It's hard to keep this in the camera view, sorry if I keep moving it out. I'm trying to put it in a place you'll see. Oops, I lost a clip. These are not as nice as the Clover clips. They're a cheapo version and they break a lot more often. Try not to let it get too close to the zipper teeth. Right, when I get to the end, I can simply let it overlap. I am going to just turn this under a little bit. This isn't a requirement, but I do prefer it to have. Then I put this in place, and I'm ready to go. All right, so for this stitch, I usually do a little bit lengthened, but not as much as when I basted. And I move it over, and I just I stitch with about a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I just go for it. Periodically as I sew, I feel the back to make sure that it feels like it's in the right spot, so that I can make sure that I'm sewing over both edges. At the end, I will have to check, and so far I've been good about not missing any back pieces of the back, but it's not fun to have to re-sew over a portion, so I do kind of check as I go along. This area, it's getting kind of thick, so I just go carefully. If I need to hand crank it, I will. Here I am at the webbing. Most likely place to break a needle. So far though, I'm good. Whew. Okay, made it past one of these corners. I'm not switching to a zipper foot. I don't think I need to. But you can. Since I'm sewing from the back of the zipper, the teeth aren't really getting in the way. Here though, I'm going to have the zipper head or the zipper pull in the way, so I am going to change my needle position. I know not every machine can do that. And I'll just keep it like this while I'm sewing the webbing on this corner. And I'm almost done. Home stretch. I'm going to turn it over and see how I did. Not perfect, but so I'm going to go back and I'm going to restitch right here and right here at the beginning. Okay. Okay, the very last thing I'm going to do before turning it is to change to a zigzag, and I am going to make it a little wider of a zigzag and very close together. And now I can, if I turn it from this side, remember I centered it on this dart. I don't know if you can see the dart. This is where the dart is. So I can feel that this is where my webbing is. So I am just going to stitch over this with a very tight zigzag. Kind of see it there and there, and I'm gonna do the same thing over here. I can feel the webbing. All right, now we are done, except for the strap. It's the only sewing left, but we've got to turn this right side out. Not the easiest thing with this fabric I've chosen, but also not the worst thing I've turned. Okay. Now I just pop everything out, push it into place, pull on the places with webbing. It's usually a little lumpy when I first turn it out, so I kind of let's see, let's get this last corner out before I talk about the lumpiness. Okay, so usually what I do is I just kind of squish this edge with my fingers all the way around, squeeze it into place. And then Of course, this wants to stick straight out. So I just kind of press with my fingers. And trust me, over time, that'll sit better as you use it, because it'll be zipped up all the time. So here we go. There's the inside. I can take this flap out now and then snap it. Oops, sorry, hit my zipper. I've got this front zipper. I push the pocket inside into place if it got pushed out of place. Same with this one. There we go. So all we have left now is the strap.